Hello, I'm
Hello.
Ursala Hudson.
Hi, Ursula. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel, and we're recording for Coffee and Culture, which is a radio show podcast which airs on Talk 1260 and 103.7 KTRC in Santa Fe, New Mexico, streaming at santafe.com. And then podcasts of past shows are, you can go to chasedaniel.com, which is my website, or you can go to Spotify or Amazon or Apple or those kind of places and look for Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel. And part of the joy of this, being the host of this show every other week, is that I get to interview and talk with whoever I want. So today I'm talking with Ursala Hudson, as she said. And I met Ursula at a Native Arts and Culture Foundation schmoozy luncheon during Indian Market Week a couple of years ago. And then we've seen each other a couple times. We don't really know each other. But now we're going to talk for an hour. And Ursula is in a 80s, 90s punk cover band called Pussyfoot out of Pagosa Springs, and also just finished an MFA in visual arts at the Institute of American Indian Arts here in Santa Fe. And she's the mother of two daughters, and she's the daughter and sister of weavers in the Chilkat Tlingit style, called Chilkat weaving or Raven's Tail weaving, and but also has taken that form and that maybe traditional work and morphed it into different media and different ways of presenting. So
That's
fair.
pretty good intro, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If I say things that are totally wrong, please correct me.
No.
And so you're of Tlingit, Filipina, English, German descent, heritage.
Yep.
And grew up mostly in Pagosa Springs, but also connection to your mother's family in southeastern Alaska, near Ketchikan, Juneau, somewhere over there. Yeah, I've never been.
Come on up.
Yeah, what's it like up there? How's it different than?
How's it different? Well, it's a rainforest, and it's really, the climate's extreme, and it requires, the winters are dark and intense, and there's a lot of substance abuse and
That New Mexico, we have that in common.
yes, but you can't escape very easily, and so you really have to rely on each other, and so it really fosters an intense sense of community. Like, you rely on your people a lot more, I think, than here, where it's dry. Like, you can just lay in a hammock and enjoy the sunlight here. There's more of a sense of urgency when the weather's nice up in Alaska, and people are just frantic all the time, whether it's winter or summer,
To get out and get stuff done.
And so it's just like the creative vibrancy is super intense up there.
Interesting. Yeah. And it's and it's so very different than here, just in terms of a rainforest and a desert and all that. Yeah, I want to go. The closest I've been is maybe Vancouver Island.
I haven't been there. I've heard
Beautiful.
that's rad.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. So you, when growing up, you didn't working on your mother's weavings. Weaving is often culturally a communal activity, like a bunch of people work on something together.
No, not for Chilkat and Raven's Tail. Usually you have maybe an auntie teaching their niece, and you have, the men getting the mountain goat. This is all historic. This is the process historically. And then you have your family members watching the children. And so 1 to 3 weavers, maybe max, generally working on a woven project for 6 months out of the year. And then during the summer months, there's not usually weaving going on. It's like fishing and berry picking.
Right. So you're out there in the environment collecting food traditionally in the summer when you can. And in the winter, you're in the
cracking
plank
down
house making stuff.
And so it does take a lot of it has always currently too takes a lot of privilege to be a weaver, because you are chosen, you go through this intense training for years, and then you get to be supported by your community to weave ceremonial regalia. Right.
And your mother was chosen by her teacher, Jenny Thuneau.
Clinot.
Clinot. And Jenny was born in the 1900s.
Yeah.
Or, in the 1800s, 19th century. And so I know in a lot of the Northwest Coast, a lot of language and traditional religious practice were forbidden, outlawed. But this line of knowledge survived that.
Yes, to some extent. I'm sure much was lost. So Jenny learned to weave at the beginning of the 20th century, and it was just at this time when the trading of Chilkat blankets was really alive, and so she wove many of her weavings for the market.
Right.
And I think a lot of certain teachings, technical and spiritual, were lost by the 80s when my mom learned from Jenny.
Right.
And I wouldn't say by that time she wasn't exactly chosen. The economy and the culture was at a place where some women were in a position to where they could take a workshop.
Right.
And so there was a dozen women who went and studied with Jenny for a couple weeks. Yeah. And the ones that showed promise got to be invited to deepen their practice. And yeah, my mom was one of the few.
Right. And somewhere I read or listened to you talking about, as a kid, it was a chore to work on this stuff. Yeah. And it was only later that you embraced it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what led to that shift?
Well, yeah,
were you making art in a different way before that?
Yeah. So I was homeschooled by my mom, and part of my chores was not to prepare her materials so much as it was to sit next to her while she processed her emotions. And
I thought you were going to say wool.
No. I had to listen to her go through the different traumas in her life, and right. I was kind of like a little therapist to her. And so weaving was not just like an annoying chore labor-wise, but it was emotionally difficult for me. Right. And so I didn't want to participate in that dramatic artistic practice, and right. And so I tried to avoid it until I was 27. But because I was raised by two professional artists, by the time I got to college and I had to choose my major, I was most trained for being an artist. Right. So I decided, after changing my major several times, to just major in art. And I just made a lot of college art, replicating things I'd seen. Yeah. And making pretty things. And but I'd also just became a mom at about 22. And so I was also doing graphic design to kind of try to support our family. And yeah. And art was there for me, but I didn't know how to make it a career. Right.
We have to go to a break, so we'll talk more about this. You're listening to Coffee and Culture. I'm talking with Ursala Hudson. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel. I'm talking with Ursala Hudson about weaving and tradition and growing up and learning different things. So homeschool, you and your sister and your brother? Is that right?
They mostly went to public school. By the time I came along...
You're the youngest?
Yeah, I'm 8 years younger than my sister. My brother's also he's a director. He works at IIA, Khalil Hudson. He's a director, cinematographer. He's 11 years older. They mostly went to public school, and I got to spend time with my mom.
Right, which sounds like it was good and bad.
Good and bad.
Yeah, and beautiful and horrible. And homeschooling and growing up with your parents who are artists and both involved in sort of this resurgence of Tlingit arts from the 80s onward. Your worldview is very shaped by them and by that traditional or invented traditional culture, however it was. And so that seems to be something you're bringing forward as an important aspect of the work you're doing now.
Yeah. How, you have a question around that?
No.
Let's see, where can we go from there?
Like I was listening to a talk you were giving that talked about this big backdrop you made for this rock music festival, and that part of the deal was honoring the traditional culture by cutting up the backdrop after the concert and giving it to all the producers and all the musicians and everyone involved in the production. And then at the last minute, there was a change in that, which was very upsetting to you because in your view of the project, that was an essential part of it, because it was a cultural, because the art is not just an object for sale. The art is a cultural tool and a teaching, and there's not an easy boundary between the economics, the religion, if you want to call it that, the artwork, the community, all of those things sort of blend into each other. And so the distribution of the piece, which was done traditionally with chokat blankets?
Yes. So with robes that take a year to make.
And
then you cut it up.
After a specific ceremony or something?
Yeah. At a kuik, which some people call potlatches. They're these parties that continue on, that are practiced by all of our clans every year in the fall, winter, and they are contemporary practices or traditional.
Yeah.
And
I've been to one in Vancouver Island and Port Alberni 30, 40 years ago. And so all up and down the coast, it's part of the, and it's anti-capitalist in its way. I mean, it's pre-capitalist.
Yes.
It's not in reaction to capitalist, but it has to do with amassing wealth and distributing it.
Yes. And I would say that it's most from what I understand, from my perception, it's the main conduit for passing along these ethics of balance and reciprocity and respect for each other and just acknowledging your opposites. So there's the Raven clan and the Eagle clan, and then, Raven Moiety, Eagle Moiety, and then all the clans underneath. And so each clan has their opposite, and when your clan has a party, you're paying back the opposite clan for everything they've done to support you through the year, through grieving processes, through the ups and downs. And so there's just this constant reiteration of how important it is that we're all in this together and that we balance each other out, even though we're opposites.
Right.
And so, yes, cutting up a chilkat blanket is not a practice that's really carried out much today. I only know of one chilkat blanket being cut up recently by, it was woven by Anna Brown Ellers, and like within the past 100 years. And
right, because once you make it, it's very valuable.
Yes.
So it's a huge amount of labor.
Yes.
And dedication and monetary value, and so hard to get over the hump of hand ripping that up, cutting that up.
But I can't imagine a bigger honor than to get to weave one of those robes.
Right. And traditionally, those robes are made out of
mountain goat.
Which is traditionally collected like where they rub against trees and stuff.
You can gather a little bit of wool that way. No, they're hunted, and it takes 5 to 7 goats to make one robe.
Right. Oh, okay. That's what I asked your sister about this recently. She said, no, we don't hunt them, but whatever.
What? Oh, no. Definitely hunt them.
Right. Okay. So, Lily, what are you telling me? And then the spinning traditionally is done with a spindle or just...
On your thigh. Yeah, you take...
Like a thigh spindle or just a thigh and a hand?
Just a thigh and a hand, maybe a little bit of material between the two. You just take two strands of wool and twist them at the same time with your hand, and then they just twist together.
Yeah. Wow.
It takes about 10 minutes to do 1 yard. About 1,200 yards to make a robe.
So very labor intensive, traditionally. But a lot of weavers now use commercial yarn or commercial wool.
We always spin the warp on our thigh. I am in love with the actual design and like fabrication process, so I do not spin my own warp. There are a few stellar spinners out there who love to watch movies and spin for you.
Right.
So I buy all my warp already spun.
And is the warp and the weft different?
Yeah, the warp is like 5 millimeters thick, and then the weft is commercially sourced, usually by most, I would say 90% of weavers. There's the nerdy ones who are still getting mountain goat, or not still, like more recently starting to get mountain goat and spinning it with spindles to make their weft yarns.
Which is much finer.
It's not necessarily finer, but very soft and luxurious. And definitely makes a different quality of weaving. But the closest thing to it is merino wool, and so we buy that on the World Wide Web.
Good. I'm looking at my notes. I'm right. I hear something I wrote down. Aesthetics are systems of knowledge. That's something you said, maybe. You want to? Oh, we have to go to a break soon. But start telling me, and then we'll talk more. So, like, aesthetics is, what does that word mean? Systems of understanding beauty or the way things look and what they mean. Here, let's go to break and we'll come back to that. You're back listening to Coffee and Culture. I'm Matthew Chase Daniel, your host every other week, talking with Ursala Hudson, who is an artist who has spent a lot of time here in Santa Fe and is in my living room talking to me. And before the break, I mentioned something that I wrote down. Aesthetics are systems of knowledge. So, aesthetics, we say something's aesthetically pleasing if it's like beautiful or gives us pleasure or whatever. So aesthetics is the way things look and how that's translated to our soul and our emotions and all of that, maybe. So systems of knowledge in this context is something like, so in all art, but especially in like the art from the Northwest Coast, Tlingit and others that I've seen, there's iconography, and there's killer whales and ravens and frogs and all sorts of creatures, and there's like works are designed all over the place. Like walls are painted, and high chairs are painted, and doors are painted, and spoons are carved with faces, and there's this abundance of iconography and imagery and sort of meaning imbued in the objects of life. And that's something that's always really appealed to me about that work, is just that density of meaning in a certain way, whether I understand it or not. I understand very little of it. You know, if I'm lucky, I can tell the difference between a killer whale and a thunderbird or whatever. But nonetheless, aesthetics, what did I say? Aesthetics are systems of knowledge that there's, in that artwork, there is knowledge being, cultural knowledge being transmitted through the visual field that is contained within works of art, whether that's a mask or a pole or a weaving or a 2D silkscreen drawing, whatever, or relief carving on a door panel or whatever. Is that?
Yeah.
And that translates also into any work of contemporary art, into these drawings on my wall that I made or whatever, which have meaning to me, and maybe some of that's transferred, but it's not just, isn't that pretty?
Yeah, I think, you do understand, all of us understand the power of art on our environment and on our systems. To some extent, even if we can't articulate that, we're all affected by the certain aesthetics on our walls. Feng Shui talks about this, like, art makes you feel certain ways, and it transmits unspoken lessons and sensations to us, and it has a great effect on us. And up in Alaska, when we adorn all of our spoons and our boxes and like all the trim in our buildings and the tile work, now contemporary wise, the message is conveyed that our culture is always with us. Our people, our ancestors are always with us. These patterns, whether they're geometric or curvilinear, like faces and hands and animals, that we're constantly reminded that these things have been passed down for thousands of years. And so you walk into any space, or you are confronted with a totem pole on the beach, and you're reminded that you're not alone.
Right.
And so that's just like I think like one of the fundamental principles of like our aesthetics, transmitting that knowledge that we are intertwined and always connected with everyone, past, present, and future. But up north, our formline, we call it formline. It's like what's the images on totem poles, on house screens, on our drums, animals, usually crests. They are communicating stories, creation stories, contracts, lessons that couldn't be communicated. Like our lessons from the past, we had no way, because we're an oral culture, we had no way of communicating those lessons into the future until we started putting art on everything.
Right.
And
because there are relationships between these different animals or that are happening on a pole or in even just a bentwood box carving or whatever.
Yeah, and then and just like the technology of the line work, the way we have like really, some people adhere very strictly to the design principles of this line work. It's like the principles are based in balance and contrast and unity and all these things that we learn in like Art 101. That just like looking at the work, you might not consciously realize that you are being reminded of how intertwined we all are and how we need the good and the bad, and it's really important that we have these systems of balance and that we respect all the animals in the water and each other.
Right. It's not just these relationships between individuals or between clans or moieties. It's between humans and everything else out there.
Yeah, and that's just conveyed, I believe, you can see it in the weight of the lines and how it moves from thick to thin, and how the form, like the canvas is taken up by the art in a certain way. It's understood in a certain way. Yeah. And yeah, like it might look like if there's like a basket design that's geometric, it might just look like a nice, pretty thing that Target can take and like put on a scarf, and it's cool and kitschy, and people in like New Mexico want to buy it.
Right.
Neiman Marcus, has been notorious for taking indigenous designs that are similar, basketry designs, and they might just look aesthetically pleasing. Right. But most of the time, those motifs are talking about something like the horizon line or the ripples on the water, and those ripples on the water being expressed in that certain way, in that pattern, are actually telling us about like where did those ripples come from? Like, why are those ripples there? They're to remind us that, we're being affected by like forces that are beyond our line of sight, and
right.
and they're going to affect our life. And so we are reminded, even in our baskets for picking berries, or for putting socks now, or for putting our trinkets in now.
Yeah.
That yes, all these forces are working together presently in action, and we have more
Marcus
respect.
Puts that on a scarf, it not necessarily saying that anymore.
No, it's
they're
not.
Not understanding it.
No, it's not.
Right, and they're not crediting where it comes from.
No.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing of work made, and we talked about this a little bit, work made for the market as opposed to work made for ceremony or for cultural preservation, for cultural practices. And the reality of most artists now who are living in our capitalist world and are talented at making things, they make them and they sell a lot of them in order to pay the rent and buy the food and do all the things of life. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's also different than weaving a robe for a ceremony or carving a mask for your community for an important transition ceremony. And there are artists who are able to do both.
Yeah.
And very embedded in community, and part of that in making work for the community, and then also making work and selling it through galleries and museum collections and all of that. I think that's good. That helps it all survive. Both of those things are important. Maybe.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit about the difference in an artist's work between commerce, making work for the market for sale, and ceremony, making work for community and cultural survival and family and that. And then just during the break, we were talking a little bit about the pedagogy of preparation for performance.
Partying.
And partying. So partying being, what is partying?
I mean, coming together, a lot of times in Santa Fe here, we, especially during Indian Market, we get together for art openings, and there's food and there's performances, and
Right.
it's just this coming together that is inspiring, and it kind of fuels us for the next few months.
Right, like that thing singing in the back of Axel.
Yeah.
That was partying.
That was great partying.
That was great fun. I love that. I love to sing, even though I'm not good at it. And I enjoy, and I rarely do it in front of other people. So for me, that was special. But so preparing for that, I mean, there was preparing Axel for that in like, oh, there's this event happening at ICA, and it's a humor thing, and we're going to be there, and we'll have the radio thing, and then people coming in. And then like Nick Delaney came in, and I'm like, oh, you're a musician, do you play, here's a guitar, play something. And then he said, oh, I don't know what you play. And then we did something, and you came in, and we all just had fun, and it was very inspiring. And so it fuels us for when we go away, and we're like, here's something that maybe your mother said. Chilkat weaving is a meditative and spiritual practice akin to Tai Chi, leading to new horizons, new ways of thinking, and new ways of being. So like the process of weaving a blanket is this largely solitary or a small group of people, and you're doing it traditionally during the winter when it's dark and you're not out in nature. And so you go to Indian Market and you sing in the back of a truck and you get all jazzed up, and then you go back to Pagosa with your family and you're working on making stuff, and it's more solitary or a small community. But that ziz that you got in Santa Fe helps carry you through, and you know that this piece that you're working on now is going to go out in the world to some museum or gallery or event or performance. You know, that performance you did at Site Santa Fe with Raven Chacon and Candace Hopkins a couple of years ago, where, it was this very zizzy, exciting, little unexpected things coming in. So there's the time where you're like in view, and the time when you're out of view.
Yeah, and like I think that we can all really appreciate those times in view where the audience is a valid participant in the whole presentation or performance exhibition process, and they are affected energetically. We want to share what we've been working on all year, maybe for many years, maybe for many weeks, but we also, like, it would be nothing without the audience. And then the audience, a lot of times the people in the audience don't think they're creative, but they are affected by it, maybe subconsciously, for years to come. So the whole party experience, whether it is a ceremony, and I don't want to diminish the power of a ceremony or like the seriousness.
Right, but like potlatches are parties.
Yeah. And or if it's just a like a punk rock show, like there's this vast difference, but they're all very powerful and they all affect us.
Right, and they're all community, maybe a diverse community, maybe a small community, coming together as a group and participating in something together, whether it's the musician on stage, everyone's facing the front and listening and dancing or just listening, or whether it's the potlatch and people making speeches and everyone listening and everyone eating a meal together and all of that.
Yeah, and we're all hungry for that. Like, I don't know anybody in this world who doesn't need community and doesn't feel, that we're communal
And we're
beings.
more hungry than we used to be.
Yeah.
Because we're more split apart and just checking our Instagram, which feels like community for 5 minutes. And then it doesn't.
So, yeah, there's like the party, and then there's what I believe people aren't taking enough advantage of consciously, which is the value of preparing to party. And that is like thinking about your costumes or your regalia, those are not interchangeable words. The food preparation, the set design,
right,
or the
that's a
environmental
huge
design.
amount of work to pull it off and make it successful. And so, and you're saying that that's not valued, that part of it.
I don't think, especially audiences, like, they can appreciate it to some extent, but I don't think, I would like to perpetuate more of a reverence for the preparation process, because there is something really, like my mom said in that quote, like, there's something really amazing that can come about, like saying, I'm going to work on this pair of moccasins for next year's party.
Right.
Or like, I'm going to gather all of this fish to feed everyone.
Right.
For this upcoming party.
Yeah.
And that requires collaboration with other fishermen, or like pulling in the knowledge of your aunties to like to make sure that you can execute these beaded moccasins. Like, it's this intergenerational, between, way past, like, we're pulling information from our ancestors, whether they're native or German or whatever.
Yeah.
We're pulling these design systems and aesthetics that we might not be conscious of into our practice as we prepare to party. And like our taste preferences and how we do prepare our food, or work on our backdrop, and like what we think is like a stunning set design. And so it's this, intergenerational collaboration that can, when we're in the creative process and we're working through challenges, trying to figure out how to execute this like really difficult thing that we may have never tried to confront before, messages can come through, and
they come through, I think, in the party once, if you're prepared for it, but they also come through in the story of it. Like the story of, how long it takes to spin wool, or how long it takes to weave a blanket, or I just did a show, I made a sculpture in LA out of palm tree parts, and then there was a event happening, an opening kind of thing. And so I wanted to serve food. And so I was like, okay, I ended up making, with my son together, we made coconut date ice cream. And so the ice cream was made only from products from palm trees, coconut palms and date palms. And then we served it in bowls made out of palm leaf, and with spoons made out of palm leaf, and then with little palmier, little French cookies made with date and coconut sugar in the shape of palm leaves. And so it was like, it took a lot of thinking and a lot, it was weeks of like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Test this recipe, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone who came to the thing got this beautiful bowl of delicious food that related and was integral to the piece. Like they weren't really separate. So it comes across in that way too, but also in the story. Like if they just thought it was vanilla ice cream with coconut flavor, it would be different than if they know it's all made from coconut. So there's that also part in the art world of like the wall text or whatever, like describing, telling the story. Or you read a book and it tells the story of how things are made. But it also comes through in the piece itself, in the drawing, in the block print, in the weaving, in the carving.
But it is, I'm growing up. I'm 38 years old. Like, I feel like I'm just now having this realization of like how, there's this hyperfixation on the tangible product, but it's such a small element to like this huge meaning making exercise or event.
Right, because if it's just about making product, then you're just a factory worker.
Yeah.
But if there's meaning in it, you're inspired to make the next thing, and they're all different and changing. I don't know. Well, that's all the time we got.
Oh, goody.
But we could do it again someday. My name's Matthew Chase Daniel. You've been listening to me, as usual, with Ursala Hudson.
Hi.
And you can listen to podcasts of this or other past shows. Look for Coffee and Culture with Matthew Chase Daniel. And I'll talk to you again in a couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Kunachchish.
Good night.